I recently went to the drive-in to check out the new Mike Nichols film, The Bike Riders, and I enjoyed it a lot. But one specific scene stuck with me in the week since. In the film, Tom Hardy plays Johnny, the leader of the main biker gang. The scene that caught my attention has Johnny sitting in front of a TV, watching the classic Marlon Brando film, The Wild One. And the narration states that Hardy's character Johnny was inspired by Marlon Brando in this film to start up his own biker gang. The film held on Hardy's face for what felt like ages, cutting between Brando on the TV and Hardy, infatuated with what he was seeing. In this moment, I knew I wasn't just seeing the character on screen. I was looking directly at Tom Hardy, examining a man who he owes everything to, almost like he was looking into a time-traveling mirror, at a version of himself from the past. And it was at this moment that I realized that Tom Hardy is our modern-day Marlon Brando. Now, I'm not the first person to draw this comparison, but now that we're a couple decades into Tom Hardy's career, it's easy to see just how similar these two are. Marlon Brando rose to fame in the 1950s, ushering in a new style of acting that was more naturalistic than the overly performative hot-dogging that most Hollywood actors used at the time. His naturalized line delivery was so out of the norm that he was given the nickname Mumbles by his one-time co-star Frank Sinatra. Brando was the image of the conventional handsome leading man, while bringing so much complexity to every role. He became one of the most interesting actors of all time, paving the way for the new Hollywood revolution of the 1970s. In the 70s, a new generation of actors who were inspired by Brando, like Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, rose to fame, taking his acting methods to new heights. The De Niro generation inspired a new class of thespians in the 80s and 90s, and then in the 2000s, when Hollywood was reaching its apex blockbusterification, a few actors carried on the tradition that was started by Brando, even if their skills felt out of place in this new era. And that brings us to Tom Hardy. He got his start along with most of the actors in his class on the HBO series Band of Brothers, and by the start of the 2010s, he had proven himself as one of Hollywood's most compelling leading men on the rise. At first glance, he bears a striking resemblance to his metaphoric grandfather, Marlon Brando, with the looks of a heartthrob but the physicality of a rugby player. They are the epitome of masculine energy, perfect to play military men or leaders of a gang, but there's also a feminine softness in the performances that they give. You will never see a boring role from either of these two guys, because they're always making interesting choices on screen. Some of their choices may be confounding, but they are always interesting to watch. Just like Brando, Tom Hardy has been known to use his voice in unique and sometimes just odd ways, often becoming the modern-day Mumbles. In many of his roles, it's hard to tell what kind of accent he's doing or what he's even saying at all, but it's always memorable. From Capone,
I take it to 5 to 10 whoa one.
To Mad Max, to Venom.
How do you even know about that?
I know everything.
You do?
His voice is a tool for him to make each character unique, and that's the same with Brando. Take his role of Vito Corleone in The Godfather.
I can't remember the last time that you invited me to your house for a cup of coffee.
His voice in that film has become one of the most recognizable characteristics of any character in movie history. If there was a Marlon Brando school of acting, Tom Hardy seemingly passed every class. Their vocal tendencies, combined with their overall physicality, give each role a presence that is individually powerful. They even pick the same sort of roles: conflicted men in power, anti-heroes, and men with more emotions bubbling underneath their skin than they have the vocabulary to express, so they have to get it out using tone and body language. But even with their similarities, Marlon Brando is thought of as possibly the greatest actor in history. But I don't see too many people calling Tom Hardy even the best of his generation. The main reason for that is simply just the changing of Hollywood. Through Marlon Brando's prime, cinema was going through a recalibration, focusing on interesting stories with deep characters. Whereas when Tom Hardy came along, those movies were still being made, but they were not mainstream entertainment anymore. Luckily for Hardy, the Brando School of Acting had a superhero class too, and he followed in his footsteps, joining the world of comic book movies. Marlon Brando played Jor-El in the 1978 classic Superman. His presence brought some much-needed credibility to the film, bringing his Oscar-worthy gravitas to what could have otherwise been thought of as a B-movie. Superhero movies would come a long way in the next 30 years, but Hardy did the same thing playing the iconic villain Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. Through his iconic look and sort of insane but equally iconic voice, this immediately became one of the most iconic supervillain performances ever. He even would go on to play Venom in another superhero trilogy, and his mumbling in the role of Eddie Brock would make Marlon Brando proud. His most recent film, The Bike Riders, is probably his closest reflection of a Marlon Brando performance, playing Johnny as a character who was almost imitating Brando as an idea, more than as a man or performer. Hardy was asked about his inspiration for the role, and he said, "It was very important to Jeff Nichols that he focused on that moment where he was watching Brando on the big screen, so it would be foolish to not connect the dots, that was somehow an undertow. But certainly that this was a person imitating something that had come from that, but that also Johnny's a real guy in real life, so it wouldn't be right to just parody Marlon Brando." Throughout his whole career, while his presence and methods often reflected the work of Marlon Brando, it was never a duplicate of what was done before. I don't think that anything either of them do on the big screen can be replicated. It's their unique minds that make choices that only they could make. Hardy would go on to say in that same interview that his other inspirations for the role were Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny, so his acting thought process remains just as enigmatic as Brando's was. Aside from the infamously ambiguous sexuality of each artist, their off-screen personas don't seem to be too similar. There are countless of stories of Brando being a nightmare to work with on set, but Hardy seems to be just like a normal dude off-screen. Tom Hardy is turning 47 years old in September, which is exactly how old Marlon Brando was when he filmed The Godfather, which is crazy. Now that Coppola returned with Megalopolis, who knows, maybe he needs to tap Tom Hardy for The Godfather Part 4 or something. Some of my favorite Brando performances came later on in his career, so I'm so excited to see where the next stage of Tom Hardy goes next. Thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know down in the comments what is your favorite Tom Hardy movie. Also, let me know if there's any other actors or directors from the modern day or the past that you want to see me make a comparison video on just like this. Make sure you go check out The Bike Riders. I thought there was a ton of great performances in it. I saw it as the second film in a double feature at the Delsey Drive-In in South Jersey, playing right after Twisters, so that was a fire night. I have part 4 of my rappers and their film director equivalent series dropping in just a couple weeks, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and like the video if you want to see more. Thank you guys for all the support on this channel. We are almost at 1,000 subscribers, so share this with your friends if you think they'd like it. And as always, I got a lot more headed your way, so stay tuned, stay safe, and stay deaf. Thanks for watching.